This took place last month on the 24th in a sushi restaurant in Cologne, France. My ex and I decided to go eat dinner in this small sushi place we would often go to. We're on good terms and still see each other from time to time. We sat down near the entrance. I was facing the window. We had just started eating when a group of 4 17-year-olds came in and sat at the table next to ours. They began having a conversation about some weird guy they encountered on their way to the restaurant. Apparently he had a problem with one of the kids, who I'll call Tom. I don't remember much about what they said, except that the guy claimed he'd come back for Tom. Tom had a motorcycle helmet, which he had put on the table next to him. This is important for later. I didn't think much of it and carried on eating. I don't remember how many people there were, but I'd say there were around 15 people. A few minutes later, I noticed a guy at the window, and I hear the kid saying, "Holy crap, that's him." The guy was at the window, angrily gesturing Tom to come outside. Since Tom wasn't coming out, the guy opened the door and told him to come outside. Tom provoked him, telling him to go screw his mom in French. Then the guy lets go of the door, pulls out a knife from his pocket, and charges at Tom. As soon as I saw the knife, my heart dropped. As the guy tried to stab Tom, he grabbed his helmet and struck the guy with it. A fight breaks out in the middle of the restaurant, breaking everything. Our table was flipped, every plate and soy sauce container got smashed on the floor. Everyone started panicking, but no one could leave as it was a very small restaurant and they were fighting in front of the entrance, so everyone backed up in the corners behind their tables. Me and my ex did the same. I kept telling my ex that we were getting the heck out of here, while she kept calling my name in panic, too scared to move. Realizing we couldn't leave, I just shielded her, staring at the fight. Tom and the guy were on the floor, Tom on top, the guy striking him in his back. I seriously thought I was going to helplessly watch a 17-year-old get stabbed to death before my eyes. I was glued to the scene, fearing the sight of blood. Thinking Tom was getting stabbed repeatedly, I eventually turned around to my ex and put her head to my chest, telling her not to look. 2 dads ended up breaking off Tom and the guy. One was this super muscular, no business dad, and the other was a smaller Papa Bear type dad. The crazy guy was pushed out of the restaurant. He kept saying he was 47 years old with kids and that he'd kill Tom. The owner instructed us to pull down the roll-up security gate since we were the closest to the key on the wall that controlled it. All of us were now safe inside the restaurant. It was a complete mess. Food and sauce everywhere, tables all flipped and pushed to the side. The buff dad who broke off the fight was here with his wife, baby, and a 4-year-old daughter, who were bawling her eyes out. I felt so bad for her, having to witness this at such a young age. A couple called the cops, who arrived probably 3 to 5 minutes later, since the station was a 2-minute drive away from the restaurant. Cops entered the restaurant and started inspecting, asking questions, and went to see Tom, who got out of the altercation without a single scratch. Turns out the guy's knife was really cheap, and when Tom struck him with his helmet, it knocked the blade off the handle. The dude had kept hitting Tom with it in the back with the handle, hence why I thought he was stabbing him. Tom did not seem affected by the situation at all. He had this smirk on his face. Felt like another day in the office for him. He looked the delinquent type, but still, I had expected him to be a little more affected by the situation. Either way, I was glad he was okay. Cops took us outside and started getting our statements. Midway through our statements, we all noticed that a good 20 meters away, the cops had arrested the guy and were interrogating him. They eventually took him to the station. Tom and his friends explained the situation and what happened before they entered the restaurant. According to them, the guy was just leaning on a light pole close to where he was arrested, and when they passed by, Tom made eye contact with him. The guy then tried to intimidate Tom by doing that sudden head movement towards him to make him flinch. Don't know what it's called. Tom did not react and just looked at him, which drove the guy nuts, who then said he'd come back for him. I honestly think they were telling the truth. From what we saw, the guy definitely looked like the type to want to kill someone just for looking at them the wrong way. The second dad who broke off the fight, the Papa Bear one, was a sweetheart through the whole thing. He talked to everyone and comforted the 4-year-old girl, which was really nice to see. I think she'll be fine. She quickly stopped crying and referred to the guy as Le Voleur, the robber. She's obviously too young to understand, and I hope she'll forget this ever happened. Cops let us go after getting our information. They never called us, so I don't know what happened to the guy. Since the cameras in the restaurant were fake, they'll have to make do with our statements, and since we all had the same version, I hope this maniac is locked up for attempted murder. This story happened years ago. Me and my friend at the time liked to explore abandoned buildings. In my hometown, there were these series of buildings used as old war veteran hospitals. They have been abandoned since the 60s, I believe, and have fallen into disrepair. Many people would sneak in and vandalize the place, so it became a regular spot for police to patrol. This made it difficult to get in. Anyway, my friend and I decided to try and get in one night. We ended up finding a broken window in the back of one of the buildings, and we climbed in. The place was pitch black, and we only had small flashlights. Walking down the long hallways, we could see broken glass everywhere, and just an immediate feeling like you were being watched or followed. There was a long hallway we were going down with doors on either side all the way down. At one point, we split up and I went down the hall and my friend went the other direction. As I was walking alone, I would flash my light into each of the rooms as I passed by. There were wheelchairs and hospital beds and all manner of graffiti. At the last door in the hall, I turned and looked into the room, and I swear on everything, there was a black figure towering right in the doorway. I know what I saw, and I swear he didn't have eyes. The eye holes were just dark, sunken holes. I remember panicking, and I just turned back and ran as fast as I could, yelling for my friend. We had to get out of there, and I told him something was in one of the rooms. We both ran out of there as fast as we could and never went back. I don't know what I saw, but it was definitely scary, whatever it was. I was lucky enough to live in a large house when I was a kid. My father was a physical therapist. My house had a side room towards the back side of the first floor. My siblings called it the second living room because that's basically what it was. It had an old recliner, a small table, and a mid-sized couch. That's it. We hardly ever sat in there. One morning, I woke up sick. I told my mom, and she told me to take the day off from school and stay home. My siblings had to be at school, and my parents worked, so that meant I had the house to myself. I laid around in bed for a few hours until around 10:30 a.m. when I heard a steady walking coming from my first floor. I thought nothing of it at first, as I just assumed maybe my mom went in late like she did sometimes. I needed something to eat anyway, so I stood up and went downstairs to the kitchen. I made it about 3 feet in front of my kitchen's walk-in doorway when I locked eyes with not my mom, but a 6-foot-tall man wearing raggy and ripped up clothes. I was frozen in fear. I just stood there. It was only for a few seconds, but it felt like hours had passed. The guy just stood there and watched me too, no expression or anything. I eventually pulled myself out of the shock and bolted for my bedroom upstairs. I didn't hear him following me, but I got into my bedroom and locked the door and moved my dresser in front of it anyway. I pulled out my phone, and instead of calling 911 like I should have done, I called my mom. I screamed into the phone, telling her someone was in the house trying to kill me. She told me to not leave my room for any reason and call the police, so I did. 15 minutes later, the police finally showed up as I could see through my bedroom window. I watched them enter the house before I left my room to run down to them for safety. I told them everything that happened. They did a quick search of the home and found nothing. Not a single person or broken window or door. My parents both came home shortly after and were absolutely furious that the guy was not caught. I was extremely angry as well, but also relieved I was alive. The police began packing their things, but as one of the last officers was on the way out, he noticed a Walmart bag sticking out from under our couch. It was that damn couch in the side room, and well, what do you know? We found hundreds of trash bags and week-old rotting food under the couch, along with some other personal items like wipes, water bottles, and even a bag of piss. A freaking bag of piss! Whoever that man in the kitchen was had been living under our couch for weeks. I cannot comprehend how none of my family members smelled any of the garbage that was piled up under there the entire time. The fact he never made a single noise under there also baffles the hell out of me as well. We've since cleaned that room out completely and turned it into a breakfast nook with wooden chairs, so no more shitheads can break in and find free housing in them. I go off to college in a few months, so I won't have to live in fear of that incident happening again much longer, but I still think about it every time I wake up with a cough.